Everyone has different information out there about cleaning the contacts of cartridge-style video games. The most frequently used and arguably the best method is using the art eraser. This method can be very time consuming and really a terrible pain in the ass. But this is the most trusted, safest method of cleaning the contacts of your games. So what you want to do is make sure that you ground yourself off to something because static electricity can do harm to your game. To me, the best way to know that you aren't charged is to get an anti-static wrist strap. This is very cheap, 99 cents with free shipping in a lot of cases on eBay. If you don't have one, just make sure you touch a metal surface and discharge whatever static electricity you may be storing. If you have a carpet in your work area, make sure you use a foldable table or a desk, flat surface rather than using your carpet because your carpet is a static electricity's wet dream. You can also use an anti-static bag to place the game on while setting it down. That being said, take your cart and get your 3.8mm bit or driver and unscrew the cart. Take the plastics and set them aside. You want to take the eraser and just rub it back and forth until you don't see any sort of black stuff or oxidation on the contacts. Now at this point, some people just put the cart back in the plastics, put the screws back in, and play it. I tended to use WD-40 on a Q-tip to clean it, and then I will take a couple of dry Q-tips to dry the contacts off. Then let the cart sit there for 6 to 24 hours. I recommend letting them sit for at least 6 hours before trying them out. After that, put it back together. Now what is WD-40? Well, it's actually water displacement attempt number 40, and it does exactly what it claims to do. So in my humble opinion, as far as any sort of liquids go, WD-40 is the only chemical that will ever be used on my contacts. Regular alcohol leaves residue. So does 409, Windex. Unless you are getting 99% isopropyl alcohol, in that case it's fine to use. I just happen to prefer WD-40. Some people use Brasso or a polisher and a rag. I personally have never used this option. I hear a lot of negative things about it, but so many people swear by it. I'd like to hear what you all think about Brasso or polishing. Leave comments of testimonials if you like. Now you should always be skeptical when someone makes a claim to you. I'm going to put everything on the table for you and show you how I clean my games, and you can all make informed decisions on your own. Like a lot of people, I was looking for an alternative method to clean my games other than the eraser. Now maybe one of the reasons I was looking for something better is because of the area I live in. Oxidation levels on games in other areas may not be as bad. I'm not sure, I have no basis for comparison. But here in southern Louisiana, it's really fucking humid. One problem I would constantly run into, I would shop at garage sales. A lot of the time I would get home and start cleaning. NES games, Genesis games, it didn't matter. I would use the eraser, and that would only really work for me 20% of the time. Most times it wouldn't completely remove all the oxidation, so the cart would play sometimes, but I'd have to wiggle the cart or play with it just to have a good connection. Even using a brand new 72-pin connector. Sometimes the cart wouldn't work at all. And even if it did, I found myself constantly having to reopen the games and clean them again in a matter of weeks. If you utilize Craigslist, go to garage sales, flea markets, you know it's possible to come home with upwards of 50 to 100 games that you have to clean possibly in one sitting. Using an eraser gets really fucking old, real fucking quick. I just kept thinking there had to be a better way. So one day, about 9 months into collecting, a friend of mine had brought me a game that he couldn't get cleaned enough to work. At this point, I had been thinking to myself that maybe I could use a Dremel tool, as long as I could find a tip that's not too abrasive. So he says, go ahead and try it. As of now, the game is useless to me, and I didn't pay for it either. So if it got ruined, he wasn't concerned. So I started looking for a certain tip that wasn't too abrasive to use with my Dremel tool. This is the tip I found that works. It is a Dremel brand part number 511E-01. It's 180 grit brown tip included in a set of 2. I do not use the other black tip included. Now, I am not saying to use an electric powered heavy duty Dremel and go to town on your games. If you aren't careful, it's a piece of machinery, for fuck's sake, so you can sever these contacts, rendering your games useless. These are the Dremels I use. A Dremel brand 7700 and 7300. They can be found at Walmart for $20 and $30 US. I use the low setting on the 7700 and the high setting on the 7300. The batteries are interchangeable, so it is very useful for me because I usually am stuck cleaning 50 games at a time. I had frequently bought from eBay sellers that use Brasso as a cleaning method. And from what I see, Brasso comes out pretty much identical as the Dremel tip that I'm using. Here are two carts side by side. The one on the left was cleaned using Brasso and a rag. The right was cleaned by me using a Dremel tool. The whole appeal to using a Dremel tool in comparison to the eraser or a polisher is time consumption. Here is my process. After you've taken the cartridge apart, take your Dremel and clean the contacts. Be careful to only rub on the contacts, avoid hitting any other parts of the board. You should quickly see a difference. One side should only take 5 to 10 seconds to clean using the Dremel. Once you are done, take some WD-40 and a Q-tip to clean the dust off. Then you can use a few Q-tips to dry the contacts. Now allow 6 to 24 hours for the contacts to dry thoroughly. Put the board back into the plastics and test your game. If done correctly, your game should work like the day it was made, as long as the pin connector you are using is in working condition. Now, I've been using this method to clean every single one of my games. It doesn't matter if it's a $10 cart or if it's a Mega Man game that's worth $300. It just doesn't matter. I use them to clean every one of my games. And I've never destroyed a single game. I've never had to re-clean any of those games. And it doesn't matter if I'm using the top loader or the toaster version of the NES or a Mega Drive or a Genesis. It just doesn't matter. Once I clean them, they're done. Now, I see 3 different methods for using this. Number 1, you think this is harming the cart and will never try it. This is understandable. You are sanding your games. But so is using a magic eraser. I've heard one popular YouTuber who endorsed using a magic eraser on contacts. Number 2, you use it for every game. This is what I do. I save myself a lot of time and money this way because using the eraser, I had a pile of nearly 40 games that didn't work until I discovered this cleaning method. Number 3, you use it only in the case where you cannot make a game work using an eraser. This is probably the safest approach. It's not what I do, but rather than throwing away a game you think is faulty, try dremeling it first. Now, I would say if you try this, try it out on a Super Mario Duck Hunt cart or a game that is similarly common, just so you can get used to it and you don't damage an expensive cart in the process. If you have any questions regarding anything you saw here or a general question about cleaning or collecting, leave me a comment. I will try to respond to all comments and questions as quickly as possible. I would also like to know how you clean your games. Let me know in the comments. If you like what you saw here, please like the video and consider subscribing. You can also add me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Generally, I will have a new video up every Wednesday. Thank you for watching.